That's why we need pastors in here,
Okay. So day 5 didn't ask a question last week.
Anyway, though.
Day 6 asks, what sort of guidance do you want from your mother? And that's a scary question to answer, especially with a camera going. I don't think it would. So I reply, in some ways, you're having to give up control of me, but in other ways, you've probably never had so much influence, because I never needed so much guidance before. What I want is to bring as much knowledge as possible together to help me make wise decisions. I need you to continue teaching me about your experience, because I haven't got much yet. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Day 7 asked, do you have to go through the wilderness to become a mature gospel man in response to your heart and tone? And I just said, the wilderness is a between place. I don't suppose you can go from Egypt to the land without going through it. But you probably have to think about going through it, because the wilderness isn't the goal in itself.
I was thinking something here, Joseph, on that. Did you ask everyone the same question? It's kind of a reverse of ringing the changes. In other words,
changing the rings.
Well, everybody answers the same question. There's a kind of making sure all the tones are hit.
Okay. Day 8 asks, does lack of maturity in the church contribute to making the problem of your heart and tone? I think so. We need good one-anothering from the church in order to figure out these questions of transition. We are unaccustomed to thinking about maturity and don't expect to have to help each other answer these questions.
That's where the day 11 question would come in. In other words, you've got your victory house building pattern, right? And you're talking about maturity. Victory house building pattern is this: God conquers the enemies of his people. With the spoils of the battle, his people build him a house. He moves in and relaxes, and his people administer. Now, we're not used to the administering. We don't really even think that we're in charge of the whole world. We are, though. We're joint heirs with Christ in all things. We're seated with him in the heavenlies. Causation comes from heaven down through the firmament, which we're in the firmament. Hebrews 12:22, etc. So that's how that maturity comes in with the influence of day 11. The church doesn't think there is a day 11 so much. I mean, we just created day 11 here. I mean, the Lutherans have 8th-day theology, but very few have 11th-day theology. See, you inspired me to say something on that. Thank you.
And before I forget, just moving back to your mea culpa thing, although maybe we can't go through everything in depth, yet I see a value in having the opportunity to go through all those things. So I think that as future symphonies do these things, obviously more active participation by everyone will help. But it was helpful to me to have people help me work through these questions. So it's a way of one anothering.
Oh yeah.
The burden. Now you talked about the burden, but that's what one anothering is a burden. And every parent and every friend knows that one anothering is a burden. When someone says, "Would you help me with this?" That is a sacrifice of your own time for something else. So if doing this in the symphony is a burden, it can be odious or it can be a joy. So if it takes more sessions to go through these things, but if we're actually learning about each other and about each other's hearts and tones, then that burden is light.
And it could be some Beethoven symphony number, whatever. Maybe that emphasized more drums and clarinets than brass or something. It could be like that. In other words, as you're the conductor and you know the participants, you can direct emphasis at certain times. And you can say, okay, you stop talking, you talk more.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right. So, let's not be too hard on ourselves for
Oh, yeah.
doing it one way, because sometimes it'll be done one way and sometimes
And that,
it'll be done
that's
another.
another thing, you know, other people will do things, take this kind of form of one another and can do it so much better than we are.
Yeah. So that was an interlude.
Interlude. Where are we now then?
We're supposed to be moving on to day 9. And day 9 asked me, what do Jesus' final actions and words to his disciples teach us about transition? And I haven't written an answer yet because I thought I wanted to give that one a lot of thought. So we could either try to think through that now, or I'll think about it later.
Well, it's up to
Whatever you
conductor.
direct.
What do Jesus' final actions and words to his disciples teach us about transition?
I'm not sure about very final. Joe and I have been reading about, well, we were reading in John about when Jesus is talking about going away and sending the Holy Spirit to be as comforter.
Right.
So that's a big transition because he's going to be leaving them, but he's not going to leave them comfortless. Comforter will come to them. I don't know how that relates.
Yeah.
That's where the very interesting thing to bring in there is various people in Tyler talked about the bride price. That is, there's a three-way transaction in Eleazar purchasing, quote unquote, Rebecca for Isaac, and it is that Rebecca gets gifts from her father and others, which are her inheritance that she gets ahead of time. The purpose of these gifts is in case Isaac dies, then she and her children are taken care of. Then Isaac has to supply, through Eleazar, the bride price, or the mohar, which is the replacement for this inheritance that's given too soon, you see. So that the brothers and the other inheritors aren't cheated out of their inheritance. Well, the same thing happens on the cross, in that Jesus pays with his life, you see, just as Jacob paid 7 years for his bride, you see. Then the Father and the Son both send the Holy Spirit, who is to take care of the bride while Jesus is not there, you see, so that the children are taken care of. So that's a kind of a transitional thing. You just like Jacob had to work 7 years, giving up some of his time, you see, for Rachel, and he actually got Leah, and then he worked another 7 years. But then they had sufficient wherewithal to survive even if Jacob wasn't there. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
See, so that's a transition. Now I have to go, but the Comforter is coming.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like that answer too. I'm pretty smart.
I listen to audios.
Right, okay.
What there's echoes.
Okay. You want me to move on to day 10?
Yeah, go ahead with day 10.
Day 10 asks, in what ways is your transitional period more difficult than that of grandma who is losing independence? In what ways is it easier? As I'm transitioning, I have to make more choices on my own. This transition means I'm taking more responsibility, which is scary. On the other hand, I'm not really at the risk of being institutionalized, forgotten, or ignored right now, as so often happens to the elderly. I also think that good parenting teaches kids to accept and embrace this kind of transition, and I knew it was coming. I wonder if, since many people try not to think about aging, we leave folks unprepared for this loss of independence.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
that was my answer, and I haven't answered day 11 either. Day 11 asked, how has day 11, 80, 70, affected and effected my heart and tone? How is it doing so, and how does it? Will it do so? I think that was what it was actually supposed to be. And I copied it wrong. And once again, I don't know.